All
Last year.
right. Hi, everyone. It's Erica with BWISE, and we're here again for our weekly Blab. I'm excited today because not only do we have Catherine McNeil, who's joined us before, but we've got the phenomenal Ginny Clarke. I was just saying that this is the Chicago team because we're all either in Chicago or from Chicago. So I want to thank the ladies for participating. I'm really excited. For those of you who are just joining us, this is your first Blab watching. I started this organization, Black Women in Science and Engineering, because we needed it. There really wasn't an organization that addressed our particular issues for mid and senior level careers. There are lots of things early in your career. There's things for women of color in general, but nothing specific to Black women. And we certainly have a specific set of challenges and issues that we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. So thank you all for participating, for joining the group, for sending comments and support. And we'll just kick it off. I'll try to give a quick introduction of Ginny's illustrious background, and then we'll start with questions. And certainly if you all have questions, please text them. And then for people who are new, the little hands at the bottom of the screen, you click on those hands and that shows agreement with what we're saying. So it's kind of like applause. So if you agree with what we're saying, you would just click and you'll see your picture show up. So for you guys who are really enjoying what we're saying, please give us some support so we know what we're doing is reaching you. So without further ado, I will introduce Ms. Ginny Clarke. Ms. Ginny Clarke has many years of experience in a wide variety of industries from banking, right? Is that correct?
Correct.
Also executive recruiting. She's got an MBA from Kellogg and I think a bachelor's from USC. Is that right?
University of Southern Cal. My son is at USC. I went to University of California, Davis.
Okay. So two very fine schools. She's very well connected in the Chicago area. She's been on a myriad of shows showing her expertise in the field of careers. And I'll let her kind of fill in some of the things she's done. And then we'll start asking her questions about her fabulous book. So for those of you who are looking for ways to kind of further your career, maybe you're at a point where you're looking for your next role and you're not sure what to do, please go out and grab this book. I got it and I couldn't put it down. I read it the entire trip. It was so easy to read, sprinkled with some anecdotes from Ginny's life. It's a phenomenal book, very easy to read, and I think something very needed, not just for us as Black women engineers and scientists, but anyone. Ginny. So I try to make sure I sprinkle things that are particular to us scientists and engineers because we are a little different than the rest of the population. We do things a little different. So I want to make sure that this information is good for anyone, but I also make sure that, you know, we kind of keep it in the vein of those of us who are in these fields. So welcome, Dr. Ford. Dr. Ford has joined us as well this evening. So Ginny, I'll turn it over to you.
Sure.
We'll fill in what I left out, and then we'll start asking you questions about the book. And the book is called Career Mapping, Charting Your Course in the New World of Work. So for those of you who are joining us, it's in the fourth window. You can see, and you can get it from Amazon. Please do. It's a wonderful book. You will not be disappointed. All right, Ginny.
Thanks so much for having me tonight. This is exciting. It's my first Blab. So show me some applause and let me know if I'm doing okay. Let me give you, this is effectively an elevator pitch, and it was one of the questions that you have, but I'll give you just a quick thumbnail of my background so that you have a sense for kind of where I'm coming from and why it is that I wrote this book and how much it really means to me to be able to share with women like you. So I grew up in Southern California. I wanted to be a veterinarian. So I went to University of California, Davis, where they have this big vet school, and I got there and absolutely hated the coursework. So that animal science major, I started out in the sciences as well, quickly changed to a French and linguistics major, which is what I graduated in. And I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I had worked on campus quite a bit with other students as a peer advisor and counselor. I worked for the chancellor, and I ended up getting a full-time job as a college recruiter. I did that for a couple of years and then decided to come to business school, and I moved to Chicago and got my MBA at Northwestern at the Kellogg School, and worked on the admissions committee and worked in the admissions office as well. So we're starting to see this little theme of recruitment, right? But when I graduated, in spite of the fact that the school offered me a full-time job in admissions, I said, oh no, I have my MBA, I have to go into business.
Right.
So I went into banking and did that for a couple of years, was exposed to real estate and networked my way into a real estate company. It's now known as Jones Lang LaSalle. It used to be known as LaSalle Partners. I was the third African-American woman there.
Wow.
And really enjoyed it, but it was a very exclusive environment, as you might imagine,
yes.
On every level. But it was great experience, and I really enjoyed the 4 years that I spent there. And then parlayed that into a role with Prudential real estate investors. And I did everything from asset management to portfolio management to raising capital from pension funds.
Wow.
And then I decided, my father died, and that was sort of that seminal moment in my life where I looked at and questioned everything that I had ever done, and he had been kind of my guide and my coach throughout my career. And I thought, what is it that I've always loved? And I look back, remember what I said? I've been a college recruiter, I worked in admissions.
Right.
I've neglected to mention that every job I ever had, I volunteered to go on campus and represent the companies I was working for. And so I thought, I want to be an executive recruiter.
Right.
How do I do that? Well, this is back in the day, I'm dating myself, this is back in the day before the internet. And so you used to network. You literally would cold call people and say, can I have coffee or lunch with you to learn about what you do? And that was kind of how I had always gotten my jobs. I never applied for a job, ever. And to this day, I still haven't. It's because I've always had a mind for what it was that I wanted, and I was able to go in and identify the people who could connect me. And so that's what ended up happening. And I first joined a firm called DHR International. It's a big search firm, but then I joined what I think is an even better one. I'm biased. And that firm is called Spencer Stewart. It's one of the world's largest executive search firms. And I became a partner there and co-founded and led their global diversity practice. I was there for 12 years. Oh. And it was during that time that I decided to write the book. I had been there maybe 6 years when it hit me that I really wanted to kind of memorialize some of the things that I was learning as an executive recruiter.
Right.
And I wanted to offer people a little snapshot into my life, because I'm someone who arguably can do a lot of different things pretty well. But I think that can be a blessing and a curse, right. You know, so for women like you in your organization, these brainiac women who have lots of areas in which you can deploy your skills, your technical skills, it's important that you make some choices. So we'll get into that when I start talking about the specifics of the mapping process that I created. But for my own life, being at Spencer Stewart, I'm so sorry. Being at Spencer Stewart, it was clear to me that I wanted to help more people than I could help. Mm-hmm. It's important to understand that executive recruiters work for companies, right? The companies retain us, they pay us a fee to find executives for them.
Right. And
so many people would come to me and say, I'm so sorry, what happened here? Where'd we go? Or can you still see me? All right, there we go. Can you see me? And people would come to me and say, you're going to help me find a job. And I would say, that's not what I do, as much as I'd love to help you. And so I wanted my book to really help people understand that they should never sort of hand over their career planning to someone else. And a recruiter only has whatever they're working on, right? It's not like a multiple listing service. Right. So for people to come to me and say, you're going to help me, I thought, no, and you don't want me to.
Right.
Right? I mean, it could be that I'll have an opportunity that suits your interest and that you'd be qualified for and interested in, but the likelihood of me having that is really low. So I put together this book. It took me, I want to say 8 years, but I left Spencer Stewart in 2009 to write the book. And at the time, I kind of wanted to be the Susie Orman in the career space and be out as an evangelist talking about this content. So let me get to what's in it. And I think you'll appreciate this too, as analytical women. The other thing that I discerned, and it took me a minute to kind of figure it out, but once I put the book together, and I wrote it with a co-author who was a journalist, so she helped bring out, I think, some stories that make it a little bit more interesting than just sort of a straight technical guide of do this, then that.
Right.
But one of the things that was really critical for me in putting the book together was creating an actual template. And what I decided, and when I learned about myself as I was writing it, when I was getting to the end, I realized that as someone who had studied linguistics, which is the science of language, and I'd studied accounting and finance in business school, which I think accounting is the language of business.
It is.
And as an executive recruiter, I was quite methodical, I was told, and I know that I am that way. I created this template and this language and this process that is, I'm a systems thinker.
Right.
In the end, that's what I learned about myself after all these years. And so that's what this book really represents. I'm sorry?
You would be a good engineer.
I know, right? I probably should have gone to engineering school. I might have actually done something with that versus this sort of circuitous, interesting little route that I've taken. But I'm happy that I made the choices I made. But no, you're right. That is how I think. And so maybe that's evidence and example for you all of the many applications that you could use when you think in a certain way. And the challenge becomes, how do you articulate how you think to someone?
Right.
So in this process of mine, it actually mirrors the process of an executive search. So the career mapping process can help you find a job. It can also help you just manage your career and stay really tight and focused and clear and able to articulate to others where it is you think you're going. So it's got 4 parts to it real quickly. The first one is where you do sort of plotting of your history. So you look at, let's say you have 10 years of experience, and even if you want to go back farther, and there are things that you might have done in college that kind of give insight as to what you've done. So you focus macro to micro, industry, function, role, and then importantly, the key thing for me is competencies. So you really articulate in every job that you've had, winnow it down and get to the competencies, because competencies trump experience.
Right.
And a lot of companies say we do competency-based assessment. Most of them really don't. They look at your experience.
Right.
And they check a bunch of boxes.
Right.
It's incumbent upon you to be able to say, but let me tell you how I think and how I've gone about achieving these things, even though it might not be in the same context, in the same industry,
right,
or the same role. I nevertheless have the competencies.
Right.
So that's the first page. The second part is aspirational. So you've done the historical, now you do an aspirational one where you identify what are 3 or 4 maybe industries or roles that you might want to go into. Maybe you want to be an entrepreneur in 10 years along whatever timeline. Maybe you want to be a CEO. You decide. And put it all down there. And now the harder work comes, because you have to ideally create several different prototypes of these roles that you want. So you can go online and you can look. I'm not saying apply for those jobs. We don't care, by the way. I don't care about what job openings there are, because this whole process allows you to effectively create opportunities for yourself, if that makes sense. Okay? So people get caught up in, well, I'm interested in, I hear that there's a job over there and I'm interested in that. No, I'm saying you create from within what it is that you want. You'll bring that to yourself once you learn the language to help other people understand what it is that you want. Okay, so create this aspirational role, these aspirational roles, 2 or 3, probably no more than that. And again, what are the core competencies that they require? How do they stack up? What's the gap analysis between those competencies on your first page and what you know you have, and the ones that you think that you're going to need in order to achieve these other roles?
Right.
Then, real quickly, networking. What is your plan? There's actually sort of another page in there where if you're looking for a job, you can identify certain companies that you might want to work for that are in these industries.
Right.
But then importantly, networking. And create a strategic networking plan that's based on where you're trying to go. Because so many people just start networking. They just come up with this list of people. I'm going to call this person, and I'm going to call that person. But what are you going to tell them? What kind of language do you have to articulate where it is you're actually trying to go?
Right.
Well, I want to see what they want me to do and what they think I should. No, we're not looking for everybody's opinion.
Right.
You need to have your own opinion about what you want and where you're trying to go, and then ask very specific questions of these people to see if they can help you.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So those are the essential elements of the career mapping framework. And I'll stop because that was a lot. I didn't mean to talk all that long, but hopefully I've given you a sense for how this plays out.
That's exactly what I wanted, an overview. And I probably am the only one on the Blab tonight who's actually read the book. And I'm hoping to get other people to see the benefits and go out and buy it right away. And then maybe we can come back and talk about, all the wonderful things we learned and how we put them into practice. But, without knowing that you were this analytical person, now it makes sense why I like the book, right? Because for engineers, we do not like ambiguous information. We're already doing so many things, that we have to use a lot of brain power, and managing your career just feels like one of those icky soft skills type of things. Most engineers and scientists are introverts, right? So we don't like that stuff. We don't like anything that we have to talk about ourselves or dive deep. I would rather go to the dentist than do my evaluation each year. These are all very important things that, wow, that's perfect. It's orderly. It's a process. It's in, smaller size chunks. So I don't have to do it all at once. I can take each section and work on that and build to the next level in the career map. So, I just stumbled across, Ginny's book after meeting her, and I had no idea that it was probably so perfectly aligned for, scientists and engineers. It really, really should be promoted as, if you're a scientist and engineer, being
another way to market it. Sure, why not?
That's right. You need to take your book to some of the engineering conferences and give it away, or sell it rather. Give one away and sell it. So I thought it was great. Like I said, especially for me, because that's how my mind operates. And then, some business books or some career books, you're like, oh, what is the point? But it was clear there was a beginning, there was a middle, and there was an end to your book. And then I also like the different sections. So you've got, if you're entry level, it tells you what you can take away from that part of the book. It tells you if you're, middle or executive level, or detour, which is what I am, making a turn in my career, what to take from each of those sections. So, it just made perfect sense. It's a great book. I've been, talking it up ever since you and I first connected. So it is perfect. I don't know what else you would need, in managing your career. And for engineers, I've said this before, we in general, not all, because you have some extroverted people who are in sciences in the STEM fields, but we are by and large not good at managing our careers. Right. A lot of us are working in, very industrial applications where, you're so focused on getting the work done, working safely, making sure production is where it's supposed to be. There is no time left in the day to manage your career. I'm here in Houston, and for those of you who watch, are watching and are in Houston, what oil and gas has done. There are people who probably were superstars and their jobs have been cut. So no job is safe anymore anyway, but, particularly here in Houston, where, they've had about 250,000 jobs lost associated with oil and gas, which is so interesting. So when I go across the country and I say, oh, because I'm, in Houston with oil and gas challenges, and they're like, what's going on with oil and gas? I'm like, haven't you noticed that your gas is like $1.50? Like when gas is $1.50, that means people are out of work in Houston, really. Yeah. And so, I feel like this discussion we're having, and each of my blabs are always so focused on career. In some regards, either we're talking to a recruiter or we've got leadership or something. So it's so critical that, okay, now we've gotten laid off or whatever. So now how do you rebuild and get on track to either pivot to something else, or if you want to stay? I personally think oil and gas, I'm good with you. Thanks, oil and gas. It's been good. But how do you move on? And some of the things you're saying is so interesting that I'm sure Catherine can speak to this too. The gatekeeper, the first gatekeeper in these corporations is probably a 21-year-old, recent college graduate. And so, especially for science and engineering, they know nothing about science and engineering. They don't know what you do. They, don't really have an aptitude to understand what you do. So it is imperative that you kind of direct that relationship. And I like how you said that you're not looking for a job. You're telling them, no, this is what I can bring to that. So that they say, oh, I got to get this person to the hiring manager. I can't dilly dally. Other than that, I think these companies in Houston in particular, and in the rest of the country in general, they're inundated with resumes. So do you really want to go through a stack of 500 resumes, or do you want this person that, the recruiter, the 21-year-old recruiter ran into your office and said, listen, this person is sharp. I don't know if this is an exact fit, but
Right.
they've got a lot going on here, and we don't have the luxury of passing them up. So I love that.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like I've got a question from Dr. Ford. Dr. Ford says,
Mm-hmm.
Ginny, can you provide a description of someone who applied your theories to career pursuits?
There are many. I guess one of the ones that comes to mind, and interestingly, I've done the career mapping workshops within a lot of organizations. So as I said, it's not just about finding a job, but a lot of companies, particularly after the recession, really wanted to retain people.
Mm-hmm.
and wanted to encourage them and put them in the mindset of owning their career within the company.
Okay.
So I did, it was an industrial company where I had done, they brought me in to do a series of three 4-hour long sessions. And so the first one was general career mapping. We did one on personal branding. We did one on relationship building and networking. And I think one of my favorite little anecdotes is that a woman came up to me at the end of the first one. After 3 hours, we worked through the whole mapping process. And she said, you know what, I am so grateful to you because I now realize that I have the competencies to apply for this job within this company that I thought I was 2 years away from.
Wow.
And I said, then you cracked the code. That's my point.
Right.
That's it. And the point is you need to know. So it's not about sitting back and waiting for your boss to review you and saying, yes, I think you're ready for the next thing. You need to be the one who knows that.
Right.
Right? You can take all that feedback in, but deep down, this is like your personal financial plan. This is your own repository of the greatest, most valuable things that you own.
Right.
And that's your skills and talents.
Right.
So that's, I hope that answers the question. That's to me, and there are many other people obviously that have read the book, been to workshops and given me the feedback that they've landed the job they were looking for, gotten the promotion, stepped out to do something else, found courage to do something else because they realized that they didn't have to keep doing what they'd always been doing.
Right.
And they found that language. Remember, I told you I was a linguistics student, right? So language is so important to me. And that, to me, the competencies are the glue. They represent that language that cuts across all those different industries and roles and functions that you might not have allowed yourself to explore.
So, Ginny, I have a question for you because I haven't read the book yet, but listening to you, I'm absolutely going to read the book.
Great.
And what I ultimately hear you saying is, in so many words, you've kind of created an algorithm for people to find themselves and to be able to then sell themselves and create existing opportunities and new opportunities for themselves.
Yes,
And
keyword create, yes.
Okay. So,
and I love the word algorithm. That appeals to me too, yes.
That's why I
think you're a latent engineer.
I am. I'm someone, a different kind of science, right? I was telling this group of young people the other day, I used to love to read the dictionary. I'm a geek that way, right? Words, language.
That you're smart. That's how you can tell people.
Yeah.
Everybody I know who reads a lot is usually very smart. So we'll make you.
Thank you. I'll take that as a compliment.
We're going to make you an honorary BWISE.
Cool. I'll take that. Thank you.
Yeah, so I have a question for you, and I'm gonna put you on the spot because this is solely opinion, though.
Okay.
With the way that the career coaching world is set up, you know, it's 7 steps to do this, 5 steps to do that, 13 steps to, you know, land this job and things of that nature. Being someone that has studied this and put in a great deal of work and obtained experience from the recruiting side,
right?
How much weight do you put on those, you know, however many step programs? Case in point.
Go.
Okay, I'll give you an example.
Mm-hmm.
Something that comes up often that I'll read from articles in Forbes or Inc. or, you know, like things like that is 5 steps to get your resume noticed.
Yeah.
If you're on the other side of that, these are basic, I don't want to say common sense, but I don't know another way to describe it per se. But the basic common sense steps, it's the same thing over and over again. They're just figuring out, words to read.
Right.
They're rewording it pretty much.
Exactly.
So how much weight do you actually put on these articles that are out that are supposedly there to help those who are, searching for career development tips?
Yeah, well, I'd love to believe in that somebody gets something from them, but it's the difference between tactics and strategy. Okay. So you can do those little things. It's the resume is this much of the whole equation. I'm asking you to do all this other work so that you have a self-awareness and a self-knowledge, so that you now, first and foremost, know what you want, right? You might need 3 different resumes that you write and create. You need a master where you write down everything and you keep it, adding to it throughout your career. But people tend to think, the resume is the holy grail. It's the thing that's going to get me noticed. And I have to jump into this sea. I was talking to a former colleague of mine, is now at Google, doing executive recruiting. He said they get, are you ready? 4 million applicants a year.
That's crazy.
4 million.
That's crazy.
So what does that mean? That means that they are trying to eliminate, and they're using algorithms, they're using whatever else they can use to get rid of all those people that make no sense, have no business applying for certain kinds of roles. So what does that mean for you? It means that you can play the game, but I tell people, if you're going to make an application for a job, particularly in a company like that, you've probably got about a 10% chance of getting through.
Right.
Even getting an interview, much less hired.
Right.
What I was describing to you before was my own process for finding different jobs. Once I set my mind on getting into real estate, commercial real estate, I set about meeting people. I was in my 20s. I didn't know anybody. And I would cold call people and say, would you help me? Well, that turned into a job with one of the finest real estate companies in the world.
Wow.
Right? So because it's about the connection. It's the exact same thing getting into one of the most exclusive executive search firms in the world. I started telling people I want to get into executive search. And a brother called me and said, hey, I just had lunch with the managing partner at Spencer Stewart. He wanted to recruit me. I'm not interested. I told him about you. 6 months later, I was working there.
Wow.
So I think you need to, first and foremost, get clear about what you want. Don't be daunted by all these numbers that people are throwing around and think that it's impossible. If you think it's impossible, then it is.
Right.
Right. So if you haven't caught on, there's another layer to a lot of what I'm talking about here, and it's almost metaphysical. Okay, meaning we use the term creation, and here's another word, sort of manifesting.
Right.
You can't make it happen until you've decided what you want. This job thing isn't just about them against you and you knocking at the door and begging to come in. This is about how much clarity do you have? What's the level of conviction you have to get into this role, right? That's what I'm trying to empower you with, and to realize that you have the power. But it takes getting out of your shell. It takes courage. It means letting go of some fear and learning to not just packaging. It's more than just the packaging, but it's the conviction. It's the self-awareness. It's the knowing that this is one of two or three things that you really, really want. Having that focus allows you to create those opportunities. Another quick little story. I was talking to somebody last week. This guy comes into town every quarter or so, and he always wants to meet up with me every 6 months. And he's really accomplished gentleman. He's worked in 4 or 5 different companies, sales, different roles, very senior level jobs. And now he's doing a variety of things around private equity, and he's got these different projects and some boards that he sits on. And he's saying, but I want you to keep me in mind if you run across jobs. And I said, no.
That's not how it works.
No, I said, because you're not committed, and I'm not going to see anything.
Right.
You're being opportunistic.
Right.
You're not committed. Your energy is split.
Right.
Which way are you going to go? Are you going to handle this portfolio of activities that you have over here that you think can make money for you?
Right.
I would suggest you do an analysis and really see what are the probabilities of scientific, here we go again, right?
Right.
Assign some probabilities, do a decision tree and figure out what might you net over here. On the other hand, you say you want more security, you say you want possibility of a role. If it lands in your lap, it's not going to land in your lap.
Mhm.
So decide what you want. That's when it's likely to land in your lap. After you've done you've taken affirmative steps to bring it to you. I think I've been pretty clear. I get very passionate about this.
No, I mean, that's exactly true. And I think, one of the things I want to make sure I communicate to the ladies or anyone else who's listening is, the power of confidence in the belief in yourself, your capabilities,
Yes.
and what you want. A lot of us, myself included, have got one foot in corporate America, the status quo, doing what you are always done, and the other one in following your passion. Everybody talks about follow your passion, find your bliss, do whatever. Yeah. But that is scary to say, especially if it's something that's not currently existing in space. I can't imagine Mark Zuckerberg or any of these people who created these companies out of nothing. He was pretty young, so maybe he didn't have that fear. But the rest of us, who are foregoing 401ks and regular salaries and say, you know what, I don't care. I'm doing it. This is what I believe in. I know I can do it. I know I can make a difference. I know I can, be successful and do that. I mean, you've got to have that, and not just in entrepreneurial endeavors, but in corporations. Right. And as I hear you say these things, especially for those of us in science and engineering, especially those of us who are introverted scientists and engineers, that is a challenge. We can do the technical stuff, we can do a little bit of networking, schmoozing, but that internal confidence in ourselves outside of our technical abilities is what sometimes holds us back. And so I loved your book in that, okay, you don't have to know how to do it, right? You don't have to know how can I get more confidence? If you do the things in this career map, that will be your end result. That will be the output of that. You would have said, hey, wait a minute. This is great. I also,
I'm damn good at what I do.
Yeah.
Right. And let me tell you how.
Yes.
Right. And that's the language. That's the commentary that we're trying to get you to be really comfortable offering. And I'm acutely aware of introverts and some of the difficulty that introverts can have in expressing themselves in this way. And that's why I'm so intent on sort of arming you with the facts. Yeah. And the facts are about you. And yes, you might have to do some work. You might have to work with a coach or whatever, a mentor, a sponsor, someone to sort of practice talking about yourself and getting comfortable with that. But I know some really powerful introverts who have learned how to just very quietly, powerfully talk about themselves. Right. So, as I've come to understand, introverts aren't necessarily shy.
Right. That's true.
They just restore and find more comfort alone.
That's true.
Versus being in large groups of people. So I think regardless of what your orientation is in terms of introverted, extroverted, ambivert, I'm a bit of an ambivert, so I've been told. I think this really, it's a tool to help you get better about talking about yourself once you have decided some things for yourself, and no one else can do that. And I always urge people who might embark upon completing the map. And the map my website is down right now, but I can send you the map to share with people.
Okay, great.
I urge you to take a couple weeks to fill it in. This isn't something that you just write out and fill in tonight. You need some time to really think it through, because these are life decisions that you're about to make.
Right.
And it's against whatever timeline you want too, by the way. Right. So it's a very self-directed process.
Right. The one thing I'll say, my experience and most of the engineers I have met in this organization is most of us came into engineering because someone told us we were smart. Now, I always say that we were pre-STEM. We're Barks. I don't know. We were just focused on STEM. We're old. And so we get in these careers, some of us 20 plus years before there was all this, attention associated. And, if your big mama told you to be an engineer and big mama doesn't know anything about engineering, you may have picked a path that really wasn't for you. You're smart,
right,
but I'm
right.
you know, my grades were good in math and science and English. I could have just as well followed my bliss and gone into a more creative field, interior decorating. I love, to do things like that. And so I think this probably is important to us already working, but can you believe that they allow 17-year-olds to make a decision about the rest of their lives on what major they're going to have? So
yeah, it's crazy.
Certainly, I'll say engineers, because my experience with scientists, engineers, it's a little harder to pivot into something else. If you're an accountant, you can go to finance if you want. If you're in marketing, you can go in sales, but it's usually a challenge unless you've got that personality, you've had that experience, or someone just looks down and plucks you out of engineering or science to get into a totally different space. That's sometimes challenging. So it's important that as soon as you can make this decision about what you want to do with the rest of your life, you do it. I also share with the ladies, there is this company, I probably shouldn't give them a plug, but anyway, they do personality testing. And unlike Myers-Briggs, which I can never remember what letters I am, it's just too complicated.
I've forgotten myself.
Yeah, I can't remember that. This one is just 4 colors. It's just 4 colors. I can remember that. And I happen to be green, if you guys have taken the test. Green is very Mother Earth, wants to help everyone and be democratic. That is not what is valued in engineering and science. That's not valued. They value data-driven, quick decision and things like that. So most of my career, while everyone else is, barking out orders, I'm talking to the people on the manufacturing line, asking them, well, how's your mom doing? I heard she was in the hospital. Well, I sure hope she gets better. So, it's so contrary to who I am. And had I had career mapping, when I was 17 years old, I would have made probably the career path is what it is. Everything happens for a reason. God wants you to go on this path so that you can do something else. And had I not had some of the challenges that I have had in my career, I may not have had the desire to start BWISE. Almost 200 members now. And, except for one lady, everyone has been very supportive and said, oh my God, this is so wonderful. I'm so great. So I'm grateful for even those difficult times that I've had. But now that I know how to, accomplish these things with career mapping, I want to share that. And Dr. Ford has a question. Do you have any disciples who can get the message out? And
I'm counting on you, Dr. Ford.
He's not going to help. Certainly with BWISE, because I think this is so critical, especially in today's work place, that things are happening very fast. And you can tell the people who, whether they have read the career mapping or had someone in their career or in their life, kind of give them this information in a different format. And the people who don't know, it's night and day. I know people who came, through after me who've, maybe gone on to different levels, past me, because maybe I was so focused on, I got to make sure this job is done 100% perfectly right.
That's not even the game. You missed it. These
people are like, slap it together, get it in there, and they've gone on to the next thing and been promoted to vice president. So, I think it's imperative for us to be whole. It's great. And as my, when a former boss used to say, doing your job right, that's table stakes. You don't get credit for that.
That's it.
You have to,
that's assumed.
Yeah.
What else are you doing?
Part of,
Well, and don't forget this unofficial statistic that women, when we're applying for roles, let's say we're applying for something inside our own organization, we tend to want to have 100% of the requirements that are listed on that job description. 100%.
Right.
What percentage do you think men are going for?
80.
50. 20. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and they talk the rest of it, they talk their way into it. And what do they have? Confidence.
Yes.
That's right.
They haven't even done career mapping to actually know. Most of them haven't done a really thoughtful assessment of their capabilities against what it says. They're talking their way into it. And we know that the system is probably biased in favor of that strong, assertive Biff wants to get his promotion.
Right.
Meanwhile, we're sitting over there busting our butts, waiting for somebody to notice.
Right.
So lesson learned.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. Speaking of that, do you think, because I feel like confidence is at the root of women in general, but my group is focused on, Black women who are in that field. How important confidence is, whether it's, through, this exercise with the book, or it's, surrounding yourself with people who are going to encourage, empower, motivate you, of course, tell you when you're doing something wrong. But, for those of us who work as the only, it's very isolating, and speak to how important and confidence is. And if you're in a situation like that, how can you go about, building that up?
Yeah, well, I'll say something that you might not expect. And that is, I think what it comes down to, because we all come from different backgrounds. Some of us, I happen to come from a very loving family, great parents, adored my dad. He was as I mentioned, he was sort of my coach and my guide professionally. All that being said, right? Because we know plenty of people who came from less stable environments who are indeed strong and have that inner confidence and that inner strength. And I would say at the bottom, at the root cause of confidence, it's self-love.
Yep.
It's self-love. And I think we all as women, particularly Black women, we sometimes are hard on ourselves, where we put other people first. We're the nurturers. I've been a single mom for many, many years, and I've done that same thing in terms of, putting my son first. And I did learn to love myself early on. It's an ongoing thing. I meditate a lot. I have a deep spiritual practice, and I urge everyone to find whatever their peace is that allows you to feel good about you. Because if you can get grounded in that, you can put up with anything. Because trust me, some of the companies I've worked in were so male dominated, so white male dominated, they would shred the average person. Absolutely shred them. Right. Just, the things that have been said, just unconscionable, the things that have been done. And that's the culture. And yet the image from the outside is this is a very professional, this, that. Okay, great. Meanwhile, I got out of some of these organizations and was like, phew.
Right.
That was like being on a plantation.
Right.
My great grandfather was a slave. Right. So I feel like I have somewhere in my DNA some remembrance of that.
Right.
And some of these situations feel like that. Okay.
Right.
So we have to find our strength the old fashioned way. Right. Which is in thinking of our ancestors, it comes from within. We've got to find that. And we can't get so caught up in our titles and how much we're making and the prestige associated with the company or the whatever, that we lose ourselves, because I think that's what happens. And you get shaken because it's rough out there, and we have to band together as you're doing. And I commend you for bringing the sisterhood together to support one another. We need that every bit as much as, because they got it at the country club, right? So this is our version of that, where we support each other and hold hands and push through when we're feeling weak.
That's so important. And, to your point, that's, really the reason I started this is because there's so few of us in these fields, even though, you would think there's 4 of us. My group has 200 members. And I'm sure that's the tip of the iceberg, but we're isolated. We're in different companies in different parts of the country, and so we don't see each other that much. But with technology as it is, there's no excuse, right? So
that's right.
Here in Houston, the 2 of you are in Chicago on various sides of the city. There's really no reason that we can't connect in a platform like this to encourage each other. My goal with this group is let's get some of us moved up to the next rank so you can pull people up. I hear these people say, oh, we've got to get, all these young girls into STEM. But I'm thinking, where are they going to go?
Yeah.
The white men.
Yeah, just because that's not the right answer. I would hope that they're getting guidance to really explore. It's a great foundation, but as long as they understand that it's a door opener, and then they should have the self-awareness to really trust and be willing to try new and different things. Right. And once you get into something, it doesn't mean that you have to stay there. Right. So equip the folks, these young people in particular. And I wrote this with my son in mind as a 20-year-old. When he gets out of college, I want him to understand how he's going to have to play the game, because if that's all it is, it's a game.
It is.
So play it well, arm yourself with the right tools, and go out there and do whatever it is that you want to do. You can be, do, or have anything.
That's
right. So once you understand that, you're not allowing these organizations to kind of put you at their mercy.
Right.
It's all a mind game.
Right. And we've got to share this. I've got another member that was posting this week earlier about, why don't we help each other more? And I think that's key. For some reason, sometimes people think if I help her, that's going to get her farther ahead of me. And I can't do that. Whereas, collaboration would ensure that both of us rise. Right. And so, as I mentioned, with all these, new additions to the field of STEM, those of us who are already at these positions have got to go up, right? We've got to move up to make room for these people who are coming in. And so to do that, we've got to make sure that we've got all the things that we need, together to manage ourselves in our career so that we can influence, encourage, empower the next generation, so they don't have to go through that. If you read any stories about, for February, I did an entire month where I focused only Black women scientists and engineers. And that was a challenge because I had to go all the way back to the early 1900s and believe, there were people even then, women even then doing that. But I can't even imagine the challenges that they, had to overcome being, I'm sure the only, probably within hundreds of miles. So I think it's imperative that as soon as you figure it out or, get some information or knowledge, if there is another young lady who's in your corporation or on your team, you've got to help her.
That's right.
I heard Madeleine Albright one time say, there's a special place in hell for the woman who doesn't help another woman. And I think that's
right. I've heard that quote.
I went to a conference last year and I made a point of going to every single Black female and introducing myself. I said, because there's so few of us in this field, it makes no sense for us not to know each other. I'm not expecting us to be girlfriends and us to go get our nails done, but if you're in a field or a company that I have an interest in, I would hope that I could pick up the phone or send an email and say, hey, Ginny, hey, Catherine, I saw this position. What's the feedback? And that you won't turn me away or dismiss me.
Most people won't turn you away. I think a lot of people are, my belief, and I don't think I'm especially naive. I think some people aren't necessarily collaborative because they're fearful, not necessarily that you are going to somehow beat them out, but they don't feel especially confident and secure in themselves and their standing in the organization to be able to help you.
Right.
You can help somebody if you can't help yourself, right?
Right.
So moving right along, I think, don't even have any expectations of certain people like that, and they probably won't last.
Right. Okay.
Did you have other questions on the career mapping process for me?
I've got a lot of questions. So as I'm looking over my questions, I see Tam's on. Tam, do you have any questions? Anybody else have any other questions? Tam says, Ginny, where have you been all my life? She is really good. I told her she would. I told her to get the book. So hopefully she got the book and she and I are going to sit down and do the career map together.
Perfect. She said no questions.
Yes. While I'm looking at my questions, I want to make sure I pick the best ones because I had a lot. Can you speak? This is one that that really captured my attention in your book, and you spoke on fear and doubt versus courage and choice. It's kind of playing on what we talked about. Can you kind of build on that? How critical is that as a foundation of all this work that you're supposed to do? How do you do that? I mean, for me, I'm constantly saying, yes, you can do it. Yes, you can do it. Is that something innate? Some people are better at it than others.
I think so. Yeah, I think that's true. But I think the fear piece for me came in when I started thinking about my own career path and how I was making changes. And I would always kind of question, is this the right move for me? And the beauty is hopefully you have a core group of people around you that you can bounce ideas off of. At the end of the day, you've got to be the one, right? So very often, yes, you will have some fear, the what if. And so sometimes it can be helpful just to write all those fears down. What if I fail doing this job? What if they don't accept me? What if? And if you go back and look at some of the responses to the question, the what if, you find that they're pretty irrational, or at least there's really low likelihood of these things playing out. So it's it's your mind causing this doubt and fear. They very much, they could almost the same thing. The doubt can be more of, doubting yourself, and that the doubt can be that little nugget in there that pulls you back, and that turns into fear. So it becomes semantics. So what I suggest for people is, develop the courage. And I think the courage comes from having choices and knowing you can lay out. And that's one of the underlying reasons for the map of laying out on the aspirational page 3 or 4 different choices for you to explore. And it's a good test for you to really see, what are you drawn to the most? There's usually a pretty clear favorite. Mm-hmm. And, trust your intuition. As women, we have amazing intuition. And I think because I meditate, I know that mine is especially keen. And that's, as an executive recruiter, that's very often the thing that I'm teasing out as I'm interviewing people. I'm using my intuitive capabilities to know who's good, better, and best, in addition to all that other stuff, right? To determine if it's going to be fit. So understanding and using some of your intuition to help you discern between some of the choices, the possibilities that you've laid out, becomes really important. And it's that sense of having choices that can give you a greater sense of courage and confidence. That's the best way I can explain it. That's what I believe. That's what I've seen play out for myself and many others.
It kind of sounds like you're developing your personal brand. And I know that is fairly highlighted in your book. And how important is that? I think some people feel that, wow, do I really have to market myself? Do I really have to have some pulled together package that, expresses who I am? And just reading your book, that the answer is absolutely, right? So if you're a creative, innovative thinker drawn to, complex problems, that can be your personal brand. You can use that as part of your elevator pitch, as you mentioned in the book. Yes. Or
right.
You present yourself, to someone who may not have an open position, but you'd like to join that organization. Now you're selling yourself as what you can bring to that organization.
Yeah, but the whole notion of a personal brand has come up. I guess I can't remember who. One of the business writers came up with it, coined the term, I guess, and maybe 15, 20 years ago. And I initially sort of poo-pooed it because I just thought, oh, please, really, it just seems sort of cliche. But then I dissected it in my own analytical way, and I put together, and you'll see in the book, sort of 4 components. So it's reputation, it's competencies, it's now I'm forgetting what all 4. The sense of authenticity and your value. Those are the things to me that make up the brand, an individual's brand. Because I think a lot of people shy away, myself included, the notion of having to kind of put myself out there and look and present myself in a certain way can sometimes feel unnatural. So what I'm really talking about is not so much what's on your LinkedIn page or what's on your Facebook fan page or whatever, or a website. Those things, yes, there's some relevance there, but more than anything, it's how do you want to be known? What do you want to be known for? What do you want people, when they think about Ginny Clarke, they know that I'm smart, I'm driven, I'm outspoken, I'm an expert in diversity recruiting, and I'm a mom, because everybody knows how much I love my son, right? So that's kind of my brand.
Right.
And then I follow through and I'm true to my word, right? And spiritual. That's the stuff that if you ask somebody, that's probably what they would say, some derivation therein. Now, I need to be comfortable with that. If that's kind of what it is, there might be some negative things in there that I'm not sharing with you because I don't listen to that.
That's right.
Okay. I can't worry about that. Maybe I piss somebody off at some point. I'm over it.
Right.
They're not. So my point is you need to sort of own and decide. We go back to that. What is it that you want, and develop some clarity, and then be able to articulate that over and over again to many, many people, because it's core to who you are. So part of what I'm saying is be aware of the implications of your actions and be purposeful and strategic in moving around your organization and outside of the organization, because whether or not you're working at it, you are developing a brand.
Right.
And so you might as well refine it to be what it is that you actually want in a way that's going to serve you. That to me is, I don't write it exactly that way in the book. I'm more focused on, kind of establishing it and what the ingredients are. But at the end of the day, all it is how others perceive you. You can't always impact it to the extent that you might want, but at least you should be aware of those things that people perceive. Listen to the feedback. If you screwed up and now you've got a reputation for being an angry Black woman, well, a couple things. One, maybe you have been. Maybe you need to check yourself and ask a girlfriend, if you're just overreacting. And the answer might be yes, you are. Or maybe you're in an organization where your style just doesn't suit. So maybe you need to leave, right? Mm-hmm. So that's all I'm saying. Be aware of these when some of these incidents crop up, or as you're trying to move out of an organization or into a new community. Be aware of how it is that you want to be known. And ultimately, all we ever want is to be, I think, respected.
Right.
Right? More than anything. You don't have to like me, as my mother used to say, but you will respect me.
Right. Right. I think that's key. All the things that you've, focused on in your book are key to ultimately, bringing you into who you really are, whether it's developing your personal brand, working on your visibility. I think that's another important thing. You could have all of this and know all of this, but if your little light, is kind of dim, you're still not going to, accomplish the things, that you want to. So I think it's important once you get this, once you do the career map and you figure out who you are, you've done the, internal work and you're a superwoman, then make sure you raise your hand. We've talked about this on previous Blabs. Raise your hand for opportunities. There have been a couple articles I've seen here recently about leaning in too far. There was a woman, I think she was with JP Morgan Chase, and she was, for people who are familiar with that industry, she was one of the only senior woman in that field. And, she had a devastating career setback, partially not through her fault, but she's now written a book about she probably leaned in too far. And now she's reevaluating her life and saying, there's probably a good balance, right? So it's great to lean in and volunteer and say, I can do that and all that. But, that has to balance with your life. None of us know how long we have on this earth. So you want to maximize both your success, but also your joy, right? So for me, my focus is on, is this going to bring me joy? I mean, sometimes it's delayed gratification. It's not always something I'm going to, get something immediately, but ultimately, where is this going to lead me in life? And I've got a mentor who speaks to that, saying that every decision he made in his career was, is this on the path to take me where I want to go to financial independence and ultimately where I want my life to end up? And if it did, he didn't do it. And I said, wow, that's a good barometer to use. Should I take this job in China? Well, if you do that, are you going to end up, in the field or division you want to? If not, that's an easy decision to make, right? So I think that's powerful. It's wonderful. I'm sure your Amazon book sales are going to go up because we've got all these people who are just enamored. I think Dr. Ford probably wants to come to Chicago and have lunch with you now. He's just so impressed. He said he's so impressed with you. So,
that's sweet.
It's been great. And it's, can you believe it's been an hour? For the people
gone by so fast. Thank you.
It goes by so fast, and we have such a wonderful time. Now, we didn't have that many questions, but we're still getting our sea legs and getting people to join us. But we always have so much fun because the guests, from Catherine to Erica Johnson, I've had a variety of people on, even though I've been only doing it a short period. We have so much fun. The information is so valuable. You guys are always so adept at presenting this information, and it's always things that are speaking to me. Sometimes if you go to church and the pastor preaches something, you're like, how did he know I was going through that? Like, he is speaking right to me. How did he know that? And I feel that. I see Tam says that she feels that too. So thank you so much for your participation. You were so wonderful just to take a call from someone you didn't know. And I know you were like, Houston, I don't know what, opportunity.
You seem legit.
Well, I'm from Chicago, so hopefully that played. So I want to thank you so much. I mean, I'm convinced. I've got my book, so I'm not worried about them being sold out because I've got mine on my iPad. But I know at least one sale, maybe two from Catherine that we're going to have. And we're going to
thank you, Catherine.
Be the disciples we're going to be the disciples that Dr. Ford, hopefully Dr. Ford will get his too.
I hope so.
We're going to be
Thank you.
disciples that spread this far and wide. I'm working on some things. I would love to go and talk to some of the future engineers, the young ladies who are either in school or about to make the transition into the work world. Hey, let's get this done now. Let's do this. I'm not saying that this is exactly, you may decide to get married and not work anymore, but let's get this done early in your career. So we have more people who are fulfilled in their jobs.
There you go. That's the name of the game.
Yes. So I want to thank you again, Ginny. You've been gracious. I have been promoting this, ever since you agreed to come on. So, I know people are both going to be excited to watch the replay, because Blab does issue replay on their site. And then, of course, I'll have it posted on my site. And so all of you who, wanted to come, you can still watch it. You just won't have Ginny to ask any direct questions of. So sorry. But thank you again for coming on. I mean, your insight has been incredible. I'm sure everyone on tonight appreciates all the wonderful things you've shared. And we're so excited about the fact there's someone out there who's put this down in a manner that we can understand it. So Catherine, as always, Catherine is my partner. We're going to do a monthly Blab, sharing her knowledge and some of the things that she does for some of her clients, and just getting people the information they need about career development and whatnot. And we would love, if you ever say, I'm bored tonight, I think I'll join the Blab, we would welcome you. I will bounce someone out of a seat to make sure you get in. We would love to have you if you ever decide to come back. And of course, we'll
stay connected.
Right. We'll promote the book as much as we can. And I just thank everyone for joining us tonight. We're a little bit over, so I'll go one last round for one last question for Ginny. And
my battery's running low, so if I go away, then you'll know why. But I'm here for the last question if there is one.
One last question. Going once? Going twice? Going 3 times? No questions? Okay. Well, again, everyone, thank you so much. I appreciate you. It's another fabulous Blab. I want to thank everybody for joining in. Next week, I think we're going to have the Career Diva is going to talk to us about recruiters. So she's talking at a lower level, Ginny, than your executive recruiter. So for those of us who are wondering why that recruiter didn't call us back, and she's going to tell us all those interesting things. So you guys stay tuned.
I might tune into that one.
Yeah. So all the secrets, all the dirty little secrets from recruiters.
Yeah, there are many.
Share that information with us next week. So hopefully you guys will join us then. And I just want to say thank you to everyone once again. And you guys have a wonderful evening. And we're going to sign off. Class dismissed.
Have a
good night, everybody.
Everyone.
Bye.